Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Selectmen's meeting was called to order at 5:30 for an executive session. There was no action taken. So on number 3, they approve the July 25th Selectmen's minutes.
We can't because Pat's not here.
Pat's not here? Okay, we'll skip to
It was
the
just the
public.
3 of us.
Okay. Public forum, if there's anybody out there that'd like to come up to the podium and talk about anything that's not on the agenda, you're more than welcome to. Wow, okay.
We'll all run at once.
Mark your calendars,
That's all right.
folks.
Consider a renewal liquor license application submitted by Captain Jeffords Inn, LLC, DBA Captain Jeffords Inn, 5 Pearl Street.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, consider a renewal liquor license application submitted by Asada LLC, DBA The Lost Fire, 62 Mills Road.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Consider an annual request from the Rotary Club to rename Dock Square to Duck Square for a one-day on August 17th for the Duck Race and River Fest event.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? Have fun. Okay. 7. Approve the tree warden.
Point.
Go ahead. Did you
No, I
ask?
said appoint a tree warden.
That's what I said.
You
didn't I?
said approve.
Oh, point, okay, excuse me. John Ripton has been, from Pat Briggs, has said that he'd like to see John Ripton approved, and he, to take as a tree warden.
Can
What do you think?
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
I think we should honor
So
Pat's.
moved.
I think you're right.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
And
Consider-
appointed and approved.
Yeah.
Consider appointment to the Shade Tree Committee.
Stephen Powell.
That's what we have.
Point, let's consider, okay.
So Stephen Powell has applied to be a part of the Shade Tree Committee, and he has actually been attending their meetings over the last couple of months. So the Shade Tree Committee would love to have Stephen join them.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Consider appointments to the Board of Assessment Review.
So at your last meeting, in the beginning of July, you appointed Ted Baker as an alternate. Immediately after that meeting, we realized we did have a full member opening, and Ted certainly expressed interest in being appointed to the full membership.
So
that
moved, Ted. You don't run now.
And with that left 2 alternate positions open. We've had 2 people apply for those alternate positions. One is Jean Conity, and the second is Harrison Small.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I would move the volunteers.
I will second.
All in favor?
And just to be clear,
Who wants, okay.
Ted's term is going to be to expire in 2021. And then Jean will be in 2020, just so we can have it spread out. And we will have one, and Harrison's can be 2021.
Okay, award loader bid for the wastewater department. Hey, Chris.
So pursuant to the capital budget this year, we had received approval to replace the loader down at wastewater, our 2004 John Deere 444K. July 1st, I put out an invitation to bid to Nortrack, Southworth Milton, Beauregard Equipment, Chadwick Bay Ross, and Anderson Equipment, and solicited 3 responses. Chadwick, Bay Ross, and Anderson did not respond to the invitation to bid. The bid price for the loader that we received from Nortrax was $138,224, with a trade-in value of $41,500 for our current loader. left us with a final price of $96,724. Southworth Milton, bid price was $130,336 with a trade-in of $30,000 even, leaving us with a final price of $100,336. Beauregard Equipment gave us a bid price of $138,200 with a trade-in value of $31,800. That left us with a final price of $106,400. After discussions with the crew and our mechanic, we kind of felt that we would like to stay with John Deere. Nortrax is a dealer for John Deere. They did give us a much better price, $4,000 cheaper than the next lowest bidder. So we're looking for authorization to award the bid to Nortrax. Regarding the trade-in value, we felt that the trade-in value was a much better value than what we would get on the open market by putting our loader back out to bid. I would just remind you that the John Deere backhoe that we sold back at the end of the summer last year had about half the hours on it, and was 5 years newer, and we only obtained $34,000 for that. So I think it was a very fair offer for the trade-in value for our loader.
So what do we have, what are we trading in?
It's our John Deere 444 loader that we currently have at the plant. It's a 2004.
And Chris,
Time
you're
goes
looking
quite quick.
for the surplus remaining balance to be used towards an extended warranty, is that right?
Yes, so in addition to, the bid price that they had given to us, they had also offered us an extended warranty on the machine for an additional 84 months and 4,000 hours for a price of $2,415. We kind of felt that this is probably necessary. This newer machine has a lot of emissions equipment on it that our current machine doesn't. If anybody is familiar with the newer diesel engines, those emissions systems are problematic. It's not any more one brand than another. You just can't get away from it. They do require more maintenance and more service. And for the price of the additional extended warranty, we feel like it'd be a good value to have that.
It is a good value.
I would move that we would award the bid to Nortrax and include the extended warranty.
Second.
All in favor? So the $134, that's your deficit of, you're gonna take that out of your back pocket, or?
I will take that out of our maintenance budget.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Okay. Since you're gonna stay there, consider supplemental sewer bills.
Yeah, so, in addition to all the previous supplemental assessments that we brought forward, we've discovered 2 more properties. These are accessory apartments at 59 Main Street, map block and lot 1052, and 47 Walls District Road, map block and lot 9, 10, 20. Again, that hadn't been on the billable list. The assessment for 59 Main Street would be the full year of 2018, 2019, for a total of $923.62. There is no interest or late fees attached to that dollar amount. 47 Walls District Road, we prorated the sewer user fee for 2018 because the permit was pulled later in the year. So that was $201.14 for 2018, $467.62 for 2019, for a total of $668.76.
You've been doing quite a good job finding these pieces of property that never been on the sewer.
We're getting there.
You're getting
getting
it
there.
slow but surely.
Yes.
You have a lot more work to do on this, or is that,
No, I don't think so. I'm feeling pretty good about what we're billing now.
oh, good.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we would accept the recommendation or the supplemental assessments.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Can you pass
Award the
these
bid
down?
for the forestry skid unit. Hey, Chief.
So I'm passing down a memo that the chief just gave me. As we got the bids in yesterday, this will update you on the bid information he's gonna review.
Yeah, so we got 2 bids in on it. There were 4 that were sent out. We were looking for a specific vendor because we already have this equipment in one of the brush trucks. And by doing this to the second brush truck, it operates the same. We're gonna have this, we haven't had any issues with the first one. So I wanted to go with that one. I got 2 bids back, one from CET Fire Pump for $19,215, and one from a company called HSE, which is $14,735. And I'd ask that you would approve the low bid from HSE.
It's the same equipment?
It's the same exact one as we have currently. The only modification I made was I made one of the hose beds a little bit longer.
Is this a main company?
It is,
HSE?
it is not. They're actually made in Canada.
What's the
Ed
pleasure of the
moved,
board?
I
I
second.
moved.
Oh, okay. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, discuss future needs of the fire stations.
So the chief has some PowerPoint slides that we can either just put on the TV or we can have behind you. What's your pleasure?
TV.
TV, please.
All right. So the fire department has always had 4 stations with 4 fire companies in them. The station were built originally in the village areas of town. Port Village was on Ocean Avenue to start, then was part of the town hall, and now it's here where it is now. Wiles District Station has always been where it was built originally, with an addition put on it 30 years ago. Cape Porpoise was across the street at the Atlantic Hall. In '59, that station was built there. Come on in. There we go. And Goose Rocks Beach actually had at different times, 2 stations down at the beach, down on Edgewood and Wildwood before moving to Winter Harbor Road. The assumption was that each village was just far enough away from each other that they felt the need to have local fire protection. So each station operated with its own chief until 2008, when the town formed the one municipal fire department with 1 chief. Since then, that's how we've operated, with a fire administrator and a call company. The call company members just respond from home or work or wherever they are. Whenever there's a call, they're not in the station unless they happen to be here. The system works very well when we have qualified, locally available firefighters. One of the challenges for the future of this type of call department is a decreasing number of qualified responders who are available when we receive most of our calls. So there's some demographics of the town that unfortunately work against us with staying with this type of call force. For the fire department, pretty much the main three are that we may or may not be able to overcome are the seasonal nature of the town. It takes more time and energy to train a firefighter that's only gonna be helping us for 6 months or less of the year, because there's certain training that has to be recurrent, refresher type training annually. And even if a firefighter is out on medical leave, when they come back, I have to get them to make sure they've got their training again to keep BLS happy before they can start responding again. So it's difficult for a part-time resident firefighter to grow within the organization as well, because in the eyes of BLS, they're basically starting their training over every spring, if that's the case, when they show up. Unless they're going somewhere where they live, that they're in a department there as well, because then I can take their training records, and if BLS were to ask, I would have them. Right now, I don't have any firefighters in that category, but I did just add a seasonal firefighter where he lives the rest of the year doesn't get any training, so he's gonna have to kind of refresh every spring when he comes back, but as a pilot program, just to try to keep this community-based resource the way it is now and as a call company. The second thing that's working against us, sorry, this graph was just showing out of the number of firefighters, you know, where they live. So a little bit less than half of the firefighters that live in Kennebunkport don't work in Kennebunkport. And this is a problem for us as we move forward, where when I show how we have our times, come on, where we have our times our most of our calls are. But secondly is the median age of the firefighters and our population. Both are aging, which is challenging us to keep as the community-based resource it is. With our median age is just over 55, and most of our very active members are over 60. And third is it is a changing world about volunteerism. You know, 30 years ago, every fire department had all kinds of members that were carpenters, plumbers, electricians that would put down their tools and come to calls during the day. And today, especially during the day, during the week, today many responders work out of town and the contractors are just too busy and can't afford to stop what they're doing. And for coming out for calls that I would call smells and bells, which are odor investigations and alarm soundings, and that's what the majority of our calls are. We see our highest run volume during the day, between 6 in the morning and 6 at night. Basically, 2/3 of our runs, 64%, are during this time, when most people would be at work, and the slide a couple slides ago shows most people don't work in town. So looking at calls on the day of the week is just a quick breakdown that shows that the number of calls. We had 41 calls on Sunday last year, and 26 of them were during that time. And if you look at during the week, we had our high volume of our calls were during the week, during the 12 hours that most people aren't around. So during the budget process, I spoke of a need for responders during the day, during the week, and I had presented data that talked about the 2-in, 2-out rule, and I've updated this graph to show the first 6 months of this year for calls. Our total number of calls, which at the time was 86, 29 of them we should have needed to meet the 2-in, 2-out rule, and we did 16% of the time. We're 16 calls, excuse me. So calls that would fall into that is any reported building fire, smoke inside, fire alarms, things like that. Anything that's going to put the firefighter into what's called an IDLH atmosphere, immediately dangerous to life and health. So I took those calls and counted them as calls that we need to meet this rule. This is a federal rule, federal law. And right now we're operating at about 60% of the time we can do it. So while we've had recent success with our recruitment of 6 to 8 new members, it's going to be a little while, a year or two, to see if they're, going to pan out and that we're successful with the retention of them. But we are a senior department, and we need to pass on our knowledge that our experienced staff has to the younger generation. But it is my intention to stay with this model as long as possible. However, we do need to plan for the future, which would probably start with per diem during the day, during the week, Monday through Friday type thing. But it's important to understand that as we start down that road, that really marks the beginning of the end for the community-based resource that we are right now. And unfortunately, there's no crystal ball that's going to tell us when that time is. But if we're prepared with facilities in place, that can obviously make the transition smoother. So we've been looking at the possibility of housing personnel at the stations and examining future equipment needs. And one of the things that we discovered, in a sense, was that we could really consider downsizing our number of stations as well. So we analyzed our run data to understand where the calls are in town, mapped it out on our GIS system, and figured out that basically we would take stations in and out of that program, and it would give us areas that they'd be able to respond to in certain segments of time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like that. We determined that Port Village and Goose Rocks were the two that handled the most handled the call volume without really negatively impacting response times. Obviously, there's gonna be a little bit of a change, but not a crazy amount. Wells is in the process, Wells Fire right now, of doing that station they're building at Wells Corner. I don't know if they're on track with the original plan, but the original plan was then a second station out on 109, out towards Sanford, and then we're actually gonna close 2 of their outlying stations. That was the original plan when they started. I don't know if that's what's still there, but that's what was being presented, that was what's gonna happen. So they were gonna go from 3 stations to 2. In the planning process for future personnel and the reduced number of stations, we needed to examine programming space for both the personnel and equipment. Currently, none of the fire stations have any living space for per diem or full-time staff for the fire department. Cape has spaces for chems, but it's really not, it wouldn't be big enough to add our staff as well. But if our station model stays the same, we'd need to at least renovate one of the stations, probably here at Port Village, because it's where the highest concentration of calls are for town. To house that with a possibility that they could go to Cape, but I think it's just gonna, with chems being there, it would just end up being too tight and not, you can't really do anything with that building. We can't expand it, we can't go up with it, there's a lot of things we can't do. But any renovation or new building that we might happen for the future for the fire department, I want to include, or have included, spaces for chems to share if they choose. You know, and I understand that, you know, we're a small town, that we need to be responsive to many infrastructure needs, and starting this programming needs, we look at what we're gonna need in the future, and whatever number of fire stations the town decides to support, you know, we're gonna need a sizable investment in the future. That's it. Any questions?
It was a good presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So, as
to
the
think
chief
about.
said, we are in a programming space needs analysis now. As you'll remember, we hired David Graham and Steve Doe, who's looking at both the town hall needs as well as the fire needs. So we are examining the opportunity here to renovate this building for either of those needs, as well as the capital equipment and downsizing some of our equipment to fit into 2 stations.
Yeah, there's trucks that, I know, and it's been talked of before, that aren't on the list to be replaced. We're kind of wrestling right now with, do I move them along now and see if we can get something for them, or does when a bill come in that says it's gonna cost you X to fix it, that I say, okay, we're pulling the plug.
Have you thought about just closing one at a time? You know, like, say, maybe Cape Porpoise,
Well,
instead of closing 2.
yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that we can talk about. If it was an equipment thing that causes this closure, you know, it would be Wildwood. Unfortunately, Wildwood has a few things going against it. We can't do anything to it. It's in a bad spot. The sight lines coming out of there are pretty
Awful.
dangerous. Right. And so if something happened to the ladder truck in Cape Porpoise that I'm not planning to replace, the truck from Wildwood would go there, and Wildwood would essentially be closed if it happens mechanically. And then, you know, we could figure out the rest. But if that truck blew up tomorrow, that's what my plan would
Okay.
be.
That's a fairly new truck.
The one yeah,
Wildwood.
yeah. And the ladder truck there at Cape is 30 years old, so
Still looks
it's
good,
served
though.
us well.
Yeah, it has. Kind of hate to see it go.
Anything else?
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay, discussion of Ocean Avenue seawall project.
Michael Claus is gonna introduce our engineer.
Hello, Mike Claus, Public Works. Megan McDevitt from Waterden Current has been busily working away for, at least almost a year now on this project.
Yes.
And is here to give you an update before we try to get ready to go to construction.
Do you want to just speak about some concerns we've heard?
So we got a request to meet with folks from the River Club a couple weeks ago and met with them. They expressed some concerns about the wall. They did not like the material we'd selected for the wall, the concrete, and they had some questions about the actual wall in front of their building. So we met with them and then talked to Megan and come up with some alternate solutions, and want to present those to you guys. And I think we can tell you what the River Club's concerns are as we go on.
And the brick sidewalks?
Excuse me?
And the brick sidewalks?
Oh, and the River Club also asked us to get a alternate price for brick sidewalks, for the section that were, for the 630 feet we're replacing. We didn't budget for that. The extra costs for brick sidewalks were about $39,000.
Correct.
And they understood that there were concerns about slipperiness, so they showed us a brick they'd like us to use from Genest that has a rough surface on it. But that in a meeting with them yesterday, they indicated they were open to a partial cost share of that with the town. So that, if you wish to discuss that,
Yeah, we'll
we
have to
can.
go down that line too. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So as Mike said, my name is Meg McDevitt. I'm with Waterden Current. I was here in front of you in January, I believe, where I kind of first introduced the project. So what I want to do is just kind of give a little recap of where we're at and then talk about what our design was and what are some of the alternates we've been looking at in working collaboratively through with the River Club and the property owners in the area to see if we can find something that would make sure everyone's happy and at least bring to your attention and consideration. So just as a reminder, bids were opened on this project on February 7th. The bid price came in around $794,500, and it was awarded to Shaw Brothers on February 14th. The final contract was executed on March 26th. We are actively in what we call the shop drawing review phase, where the contractor is submitting us their plans of the materials and things they intend to use on the project, and we are reviewing them to make sure they conform to the requirements of the contract. The wall submittal is one of those big pieces that we're still reviewing and have not approved at this time because of some of these things that we're looking at. The contract required construction to start sometime after Labor Day, so the earliest the contractor could mow was September 3rd. We were waiting for an updated schedule from them, and we'll actually be meeting with them on site as well as the River Club and other residents next Tuesday at 2:30 on site, just to go over how construction will take place and just to make sure we can explain to everyone. And then at that time, we should start to get an updated schedule from Shaw Brothers of when they intend to actually mow and start digging in that area.
How long is the project supposed to take?
Project is supposed to be completed by the end of November.
In time for prelude, Sheila.
Make sure that happens.
Well, as many know, paving plants typically close in Maine around November 15th, so the goal was trying to make sure that paving could get done. Paving being on the sidewalk when the when bituminous sidewalks were on the picture, and some of the repairs in the road would be completed in time so that we wouldn't have unpaved roads or sidewalk for winter. So just here is a quick reminder of exactly where we're talking about for the project area. It's about 620, 630 feet of length, as Mike mentioned, going from the Nonantum Resort to the bridge that's just south of the Kennebunk River Club. And what we had proposed as the replacement for the deteriorating seawall is
And just so Selectmen know, the PowerPoint has changed since it was originally put in your packet, so.
So, Yes, and I'll try to point out where we changed it. I believe this slide was one where we changed one picture because we got a better photo. But what we had proposed and what the contractor is under construction or contract to build right now is this precast segmented block wall. The wall system they're intending to use is called double wall retaining wall systems. It's by United Concrete Products, and it meets the requirements of our specifications in our contract. What we have looked at with them and what we've tentatively told them that we want is that picture on the left is that's the architectural finish we'd be looking to do on the river side of the wall. And the picture on the right would be a stamped impression that they would put on the street side of the wall. The way that the, one thing in our discussions with the River Club is they've talked about that they don't necessarily like that faux brick look. They kind of would prefer the more traditional plain concrete. So one thing that oh, sorry, I'm gonna skip that. This is a wall in Naples, Maine, that is not exactly like the wall we're proposing, but it's similar enough that we wanted to show you just to give you kind of a rendering of what we're talking about with the wall coming up a couple feet above the sidewalk, having that stamped finish on the face of it, and then having a shorter railing that provides the fall protection on top of it. So this wall, as you can see, kind of looks like it has a cap top on it. Our wall would not have that in this situation. It would just be a finished stamped look all the way to the top. And our railing would be probably a little shorter in our situation, and the wall would be a little higher. So the proportions would be a little bit different, but we wanted to give you an image of something that's out there constructed that's in the same realm of what we're talking about. With regard to that finish on that face, as I was mentioning, the River Club mentioned that they like something more traditional, like the standard broom finish concrete. We talked to the wall manufacturer and asked if that's possible, and they said definitely that is actually a standard of theirs, and they submitted us this picture right here. So if we chose not to stamp the face of the wall, this is what you would get, is more of your traditional broom finish.
Would there be a cost savings with that?
There would be no cost savings with it, but there would be a time savings, which may be a critical thing. It allows them to actually fabricate the wall a lot quicker, helping to ensure it can get completed by when it needs to be.
So there's no cost savings whatsoever because we've already signed the contract, basically.
With the finish on that side of the street, correct.
Okay.
This picture here, I showed this previously. I just wanted to bring this back just to help kind of what we were talking about and how the wall will change. Right now out there, the concrete wall comes up on average about 12 inches. It sticks up above. And then you're in more of about a 3 to 3.5 foot range of the railing. So those concrete piers and then the two metal rails that come across with about a 4 and 4 foot inch total height of it. What we're proposing would max out around the 3 foot 6 inches because that's what's required for pedestrian fall safety. We are proposing for the wall to come up 2 foot 5 inches above, so about a foot and 5 inches greater than it does now. That is because we want to use the wall as the physical barrier or the guardrail to protect cars from that drop off from the edge of the river and things like that. That's something we looked at in a lot of detail, and that's a requirement of actually the main DOT highway guidelines. So the way their guidelines reach, if you have what they call a critical parallel slope, which is a slope greater than 3 to 1, it's a slope that they consider that a car can't traverse safely, even potentially could flip if it went over that. So if you get to a point where you have a side slope on the side of the road that's steeper than 3 to 1, they require barrier or guardrail. And in our situation, along this wall, we have several sections where we definitely have what we call critical slope. So this example right here is right across, right between Mr. Rinaldi's property and the Kennebunk River Club. And you can kind of see on that picture on the right, that really rocky, rip-wrapped edge. The image on the left is actually a profile we've cut through that based on the survey. That red-orange line is what we call that critical slope, 3 to 1. Now, when I say 3 to 1, that means the slope goes 3 feet horizontally, and then it drops 1 foot vertically. That's how you measure a 3 to 1 slope. That green dotted line below there is what the actual grade is, and because that line is below our 3 to 1, that means it's steeper. So therefore, it is a critical slope. if a vehicle went over that, it would not be able to traverse it safely. So a location in that area, we would want to make sure we provide a barrier, a guardrail, or some sort of rigid wall that would protect those vehicles. There are some areas along the property where we don't have, or along the project area where we don't have that critical slope. For example, right in front of the River Club, because they have that infilled land with the sand, you can see that the slope of their land is above that critical line. So that same 3-to-1 critical line in orange is there, but that green dotted line is above it, which means it's less steep than 3-to-1. So if there was no wall in that location and a car went over that, it actually would be able to traverse that safely and be able to come to a safe stop. So realistically, in that area, a barrier, a guardrail is not required. So at the request of the River Club, we did take a look at where exactly a barrier or guardrail would be needed and where we could go with just a fence or separation from the property. And that's what this image is, and I'm sorry it's a little small. The screen behind you actually shows it quite well because it's much bigger. But the areas in green are where we do not need a guardrail. We don't have that critical slope. The areas in red is where we have enough consistent critical slope that we would recommend the town put in a barrier or guardrail in those locations. So the area kind of closest to the Nonantum, the grass is filled there. There's actually not really much of a retaining wall at all. That area, we actually weren't proposing to put railing in some of that section anyways. That area does not need a barrier. The area right in front of Mr. Rinaldi's deck, because the deck is there and the driveway's there, that doesn't need a barrier, as well as about 90 feet in front of the River Club would have that safe, recoverable slope and wouldn't need a barrier.
So, but that's in the contract, correct, already? The whole stretch is in the contract?
Correct.
With a barrier?
The whole area has a barrier in the contract. That is what the contractor is required to provide. The reason we did the design was because it gave us a clean, easy, efficient process, and we thought it would be the most cost-effective at that time. But we did want to look at it so we could tell the River Club and Mr. Rinaldi, and we could show there are areas where we could drop the wall and not put that barrier if we didn't want to. And the River Club appreciated that, and they understood, and they understand the reasoning for why we need the barrier in some locations and why we don't. They did ask if there was any way to drop the wall consistently across the whole project and provide the barrier in another form, which we can do, and that's something we looked at just yesterday. And it would be to provide a barrier in the form of some sort of railing, very similar to the one that you guys have on Dock Square. So one alternative, and this is not in the contract, but one thing we could look at or work with the contractor, get some pricing, is we would drop the top of the wall. So instead of being 2 foot 5 inches above the sidewalk, drop it down to somewhere in the 9 to 12 inch range. And then we would put a railing, a tubed rail on top of it. These are DOT railings, so they meet the standards for protecting against crash ratings, just like you have at Dock Square. It would be a little.
This is the one on the Matt Lanigan Bridge.
Yeah. And this one, the one there has 4 rails because it doesn't have a concrete curb. This one, because we would have the wall, would only have 3 rails. So it would have 9 inches of concrete, and then you would have 3 rails above that. It would still go to your 3 foot 6 inch height so that you have your pedestrian fall protection all the way. And this is something that could be done consistently across the whole area.
Was that viewed more favorably than the other?
The view is in the eye of the beholder.
So where does that put us with the contract in the financial aspect?
Laura, do you want me to speak to some of the rough numbers, or do you want to speak to those numbers that we got?
Why don't you speak to them?
Sure.
And I'll tell you if I disagree.
So we did reach out to the contractor, and all the numbers we've given here, because a lot of this has been happening very recently, they're all order of magnitude type of numbers. So we looked at we asked the contractor what the cost would be to reduce the wall height down and remove the railing that we currently propose, the 1 foot 1 inch rail, off the project. That was going to be a cost savings of about $175 a linear foot to the project. So that would be a deduct. And then we asked what the cost would be to add a railing very similar to the one you see here. and they gave us a ballpark price of $220 a linear foot adder. So if we net that out, it's about a $45 linear foot addition on top of the existing contract.
So what's that come out to?
At 570 feet, I believe we came up with just about $26,000 roughly of additional costs on top of the current contract price.
Well, I don't like this at all,
What, that up there?
yeah.
I think it's more of a barrier to view than
Right.
the original proposal, but
Or a bridge, it looks like a bridge.
So I did reach out to the Commodore this afternoon, and we were able to catch up. I did tell him that based on the information we had been able to gather, we could put this railing in, it would be an additional cost, but that it was up to the Board of Selectmen. And I just wanted to know whether this was more attractive to them, more pleasing. And so he did reach out to some other members of the River Club, and he did call me back before the meeting and say that they found this much more appropriate. They did say that they would prefer that in front of the River Club and in front of Mr. Rinaldi's house, that we do drop the railing and have a transition. You know, we're not sure what that transition looks like at this point. As we stated, we don't need a guardrail at those locations, but we would need a walkway railing. They would like to have some continuity to it, so it would be similar, and of course, our concern is cost. So I did say that we would have a credit for those areas if we decrease the railing, but that would give me some funds to look at a different railing, but it would be a very limited budget. And they said they preferred this to the other design.
Really? That shocks me.
You and I both, because I don't like that,
I don't like that either.
but that's.
I mean, it's okay for the bridge, but
But even
And
when
that's
we were
more
doing
money.
that, because that was an MDOT thing, we kind of would have preferred something different then.
right, but we had no choice.
Ed, what do you think about that railing?
I like the one
I
that was proposed. I think you get a better view out of it, and I like the idea of running it from one end to the other. Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna have little kids getting up and running on it, you're gonna have kids on skateboards on it, and somebody's gonna get hurt. And then they're gonna look to us. You know, we've been through all of this, we've gone through the whole thing. It isn't as if we just pulled these plans out of our back pocket tonight and said, oh, this is what we're gonna do starting September 1st.
And I'm not sure I understand, you're saying the kids are gonna be running on what?
Well, if they
this
take
or
the
other
rail
one?
off, like for instance in front of Rinaldi's and in front of the River Club
Yeah.
itself, they're gonna skateboard down that.
Well, we would put some other railing
There would be a
there.
handrail on there,
Right.
though,
Yeah,
it would just
it'd
be a
be a
different
rail.
texture or
The-
width or dimension.
I think the wall wouldn't be as high, right? The wall wouldn't be as high.
Right.
Correct. One option that we talked about with them, if we stayed with our current design, at least in those two green areas we identified, we could drop the top of the wall to 6, 9, 12 inches something, and then some alternate
And use
railing.
the same railing.
Potentially, something
Yeah.
could go in there. It wouldn't have to
Yeah.
have that same crash rating. It's more of a separation fence at that point, separating their property from the sidewalk.
Okay.
So this railing is $26,000 more, correct? Is that correct?
Yes. that's
Yes.
The
what-
the
Okay.
bridge railing,
Right.
yeah.
Now, is that net of the savings from those places where we might recover some ground back? Lori, you were just mentioning
The
that if we were to
26,000 is if we went the entire length with this. So
Right.
if we did decrease it in those areas,
there might be some.
there's a $175 linear foot credit, but then we would have to put a different kind of railing up. And so we're not sure what that potential cost is at this point, but I've made it clear we can't go over the credit.
Yeah, and that wouldn't look good, having two different kinds of railings.
I think it would look good as it's proposed here, just one continuous railing at the same height, both for the footing and the, is that stainless or aluminum rail? I mean, it doesn't really matter, but for the steel rail?
It's a painted steel rail, so
Okay.
it would be similar to this, just much smaller. What we currently show on top of the wall is a painted steel rail, just smaller tube steel and a smaller overall height.
So-
What color are we gonna paint it?
Yeah,
They said they would like to be involved in those conversations.
All right.
The contractor is required to coordinate final color selection with the town. So we didn't require, we
I
wanted.
assume they paint it at the, at the manufacturer and it comes out, it's not painted on site.
Correct.
Well, my only other question is, what about where you don't really need a DOT wall? You know? That, I think they would much prefer that, right? Correct? In that situation?
Have you asked if they would prefer the dropped wall?
In our conversation we had yesterday, they definitely seemed like they would prefer the dropped wall, but they also expressed, that chopping the wall up, being low in some areas, being high, wasn't ideal, which is why they asked for us to look at this option, is how can we make something uniform? So I can't speak to what their overall preference would be.
To me, the wall that we have already in place under contract, to me, it looks so much better than that.
It certainly looks better than the one we're replacing, irrespective of the condition that it's in.
I just don't, I look at that as a bridge wall.
Yeah. Well, it's a barrier. I mean, we might as well just put up the ones they put on the side of the highway there. I don't know what they're called, but we've all seen them
Guardrails.
going, what's that?
Guardrails.
Guardrails, thank you.
So I just want to make sure, even though the River Club is not here tonight, they all wrote letters to you, and they have spent a fair amount of time with town staff and our engineer, and they are passionate about this. But my concern is that we are already behind schedule in terms of the shop drawings. We are trying to make sure this project comes in under budget, or not under budget, but in budget, and within a timeline, because winter is coming. And so,
We need to vote
I
on
have expressed to
Yeah,
them,
we
this is a
do.
Board of
I don't
Selectmen
mind
decision, but it's,
This at all?
they are passionate
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah, but-
You know, what my hesitation here is that we're viewing the River Club as I think as and maybe you're not, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I would tend to lean a little bit more towards treating it like a neighbor. If we were doing something in
Yeah.
front of a resident's house, we would be, I think, a little bit deferential
Yep.
to how what we're doing might impact this is a 30-year or more thing, this is gonna last a long time. We're changing the entire landscape of their arrival experience, everything. And so I just, my personal gut is that we should be as deferential as we can be while maintaining the
Absolutely.
practicality that, we
And
have
I
to
don't mind
maintain.
dropping the wall in front of Rinaldi's
Right, and I don't either.
and the River Club.
Right.
But I don't want a change in the railing. I wouldn't want a different railing here, then another different, another kind of railing there, and then change it up, down the
I agree with
road.
that.
And so for me, it's like, I don't mind the drop in the wall, but I think the railing should
Stay the
remain
same.
the same.
I'm agreeing.
And I don't mind this railing. I think it's very unobtrusive. I find that obtrusive,
They don't like it.
obtrusive.
Laura, what's the time frame on this? When do you need action? You need us to vote tonight on this, right? Is that what you're saying? Gotcha.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're the ones in charge.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so you could delay it, but just know that
We like it.
you would have to have a special meeting, and we're delaying the project.
Right. I think that we need to make a decision today.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's
How
hard
about we take something easy for a second? I'm all good with brush facing the inside wall as opposed to putting the wall finish on it. In fact, I agree with them, it's kind of tacky looking.
What I just don't understand is why we won't get a credit on it. That's a work that
Because
should.
we've already
Because it's
contracted
already-
with them, that's why.
They
Yeah,
got the
well,
contract
yeah.
in their hands.
But they haven't done the work.
Yeah.
Right.
That just irritates me.
We'll send you, you're a best negotiator.
One thing I will say is, so their standard wall design has the brush finish. It was extra for them to do a stamp, and to be honest with you, I don't know if they covered it in their costs. They pushed back on us when we told them they needed to have it, so I think that's why they aren't offering a credit right out. But they did say if they don't have to stamp it, to Lori's point about possibly being behind schedule, they've acknowledged that going with a brush finish will allow them to fabricate faster. So it might help make up some of the time that we're slightly behind at this point.
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but brush finish, it looks great, but it doesn't last that long. You're in a saltwater environment, and cement, you know, it comes apart. I mean, it's gonna change over time for sure. Versus this other, I don't see that, you know, I think that the other would be, in the long term, would last longer.
The one thing I will add is this is precast concrete, so it's stronger than your typical concrete that's, you know, cast into place in the field. So it's done in a controlled system. They're gonna come all finished, ready to go. Unlike, you know, the sidewalks that are on your street where they're doing that. It's also on the opposite side of the river. I know there is water and flooding in that area at times, but it's not directly exposed to and sitting right along the ocean all the time. Long-term, you know, any concrete near water is gonna have long-term durability, but this is precast, so it definitely is a stronger and more controlled production than your typical, like, concrete sidewalk stuff.
And how would they put the other finish on? Would it be stamped into the mold, or would it be?
It's called a form liner. It's in the mold, so that will
Okay.
actually get placed. So the riverside is gonna be form lined into that. So that's permanent. Once they pour the concrete in there, that shape will be there. Their molds don't allow it on the street side, so that's why they were gonna have to stamp that. So by taking that off, that's where they're gonna gain time in their
But
production.
if they stamped it on, wouldn't it be applied like a veneer, as opposed to being actually part of?
No, so what they do is when it comes out of the mold, while the concrete's still wet and hadn't
Okay,
cured, they'd be using a stamper to finish that.
Can you go back
Talk
to
about
the
your bad
picture
job having to stamp
of
that.
the stamped wall?
Yes. That picture on the right you're talking about?
I'm just trying to put it into perspective of what it would look like as opposed to that brushed cement, and I think it's.
She had a picture of the brush.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying, that to me, this is a lot more attractive.
What's the scale of those squares? Because the height is only what, 12 inches or something?
It's 2.5 feet,
The height of the
the,
concrete
s-
between.
the
Yes.
concrete.
So
Yeah.
how big are those little squares? Will you get 4 or 5 of those in there? I just don't see any scale of them as to what that texture would look like.
You're probably
Pretty
in
good
something
size.
similar to this.
And that's a foot or something there?
Yeah. And I just want to point out here, just to make sure it's clear, our railing will be closer together than their railing will be. Our wall will be a little higher in our design. They're not apples to apples walls, but I just want to make sure when you're thinking about view through that, I just want to make sure it's clear. I don't want expectations to be different when we see it. That probably is more about an 18-inch rail. Ours is going to be 1 foot 1 inch high. So
I like this much better than
Chairman?
the brush.
I do too. So, now we need to talk about let's
Bricks.
move on a little bit, the bricks, right? We need to talk about that. And that's the $39,000 cost.
And if
and
the
we
For
river
don't
club-
have it in our
600
budget.
feet.
If the River Club would prefer the bricks, then if they're willing to pay for it and pay for the upkeep of it, because bricks are not, they don't have the longevity that a
Well, the brick itself does, it's just that the medium that you put it down on.
Well, it's
gotta
gonna go,
move.
it's gonna go on hot tops.
Yeah.
yeah.
So another thing is, we need a decision tonight, and they're not here to talk about it. So, I
So
don't know.
I mean, I did talk to them about the bricks, and I explained that the budget was tight, and when I reviewed the budget numbers, I did not see that we would have funding to pay for the bricks. I said especially if we were to examine, a change in the guardrail component. And they said they would absorb the cost of the bricks.
in the upkeep,
So I didn't specifically talk about the upkeep.
okay, all right.
So if we went through with the contract tonight, and in another week, the River Club decides that, yes, they would like bricks, and they will pay for it in front of the River Club, is it then too late?
They've already said they would, right?
the sidewalk, no. The sidewalk's
So
going to be
we
the
have-
last thing that gets done.
That's my thought.
Well,
If
but
they-
they've already said they would do it.
Yeah, then God bless them.
So, I guess we can move along.
What do you
we all
feel about
wanna
that,
do?
Mike? You're the one that's gonna have to
Yeah.
maintain it, you know. I'm sure it'll look great when it goes down.
They presented a brick from Jeunesse that has a roughened surface, so it alleviates a lot of the concerns about it being slippery. But that has been the main concern with bricks in town on sidewalks, is keeping them, is they're slipperier. I mean, we've had to salt, and this is a little bit shaded area from, from the wall. So, my concern is we typically do not salt that sidewalk at all. We don't salt Ocean Avenue at all. It basically run the snow blower over it and go. So that tends to leave a little bit of film of snow on it. And I mean, we take a lot of trouble to make sure Dock Square gets cleared, those bricks in Dock Square get down to brick. I don't think we'd have the same level of maintenance as we do in Dock Square in the winter. So, we're going into the unknown if we go brick.
But there's a different surface on that brick.
It's a
compared to
different
what's-
surface,
yeah.
and that's what they're
And
saying, it wouldn't be as slippery.
Mike, is it brick, is it clay, or is it a precast concrete
No,
paver?
it's a clay brick, that's been specifically designed with slip resistance. So it's something new.
I
You know-
say we go ahead with the contract and then let them know that, they have time if they wanna
Right.
do the brick.
Well, we
they
need to
can-
set
they
a,
can.
we need to set a date for them to.
Can we leave, Lori, do you want the discretion on that? If we
Stipulation.
I
principally.
think if you just tell us that, then we can work out the details.
Okay,
Fine.
all right. So, does everybody have an idea what they wanna do, so we can have a motion?
I'm good with putting the facing on the inside as well, given what you say, because I have seen plenty of concrete finish work come off, I'm thinking stucco, and I'm sure it's something better than that, but I'm not opposed to it, they can't have everything they want, but, if we can make some compromises here, and
Well, it's a timing.
well, it's a
thing.
timing thing, and and I don't want anybody to think I'm saying, no, this is our way or the highway.
Right.
It's just that, when Alan said, I've seen a lot of these come off, I started thinking about that myself.
Were you
and-
most concerned though with the ocean facing or the water facing side of it
Yeah.
than the
I was,
inland side of it?
right.
So, to me, I'm not crazy about the way that looks it doesn't look very Kennebunkport to me.
Well, neither does this.
Neither does that.
That's true.
Yeah, this is
I mean, I
not,
think this looks
this
worse.
is not an architectural
Frank-
masterpiece,
Frankly,
but.
I'm not really in love with any of it. But to me, the broom finished on the inside was a little bit more rustic, a little bit more, I don't know.
Just looks
You mean this
industrial to me.
It
It
kind of
does.
does when you think that.
Yeah.
So you're saying you favor the stamped
I
finish?
think
I
from
do.
Alan's point of view, I think they're both ugly, but I think from Alan's point of view that the stamped is gonna hold up a whole lot
I
better.
think it would.
I
We
don't
can
like any of
power
so I
wash
guess I
it.
don't really care.
We can put,
I never got that
whatever, non-toxic chemicals on it to clean it, et cetera, et cetera.
one. But.
And I just wanna clarify, the broom finish is it's nothing applied to it. They literally take a broom and rub it
Right.
across the concrete
Yeah.
as it's
Exactly.
curing, so it's
Oh,
not, it's the actual concrete, so it's
Yeah.
not.
Okay, so that was my question before, but I thought I knew the answer apparently.
So it's a
Obviously,
way to work out the imperfections, the bubbles and things that happen to concrete
Yep.
when it gets placed, so the broom finished it just finished it. You see it a lot of times when, I think Mike can say this, when they do concrete sidewalks, when it gets done, they
Right.
do that broom finish.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
there's no separate material that is the actual structural concrete. So I just wanna, it shouldn't be peeling off, I just wanna make sure that's clear.
It's just for consistency,
Yeah.
right, to remove the,
So this is
This
gonna be on both
finish,
sides,
no,
or just one side, this brushed?
no, the brush would be only on the inland side, the outboard side,
Would
right?
stay
So
the
that-
same?
Well, because it's actually being formed, the
Right.
concrete is
Yeah.
actually poured into forms that have that texture and that pattern in the actual
Right.
form. So yeah, I think the outside, the ocean or river side would have that pattern on the left.
Yeah,
And then it's really only what's facing the sidewalk or the road that would either be that or the
Yeah.
broom finished.
okay. I'm good with that. I don't care. It's
And what was
either or.
the preference of the people down there? And is Mr. Rinaldi in sync with the River Club on this as well? I see.
I think they wanted the brush
Their,
finish.
their preference is for the concrete to be brushed, but their preference is for the concrete to be at 1 foot level.
Well, yeah, that's just
And,
not.
and to get the Matt Lanigan Bridge guardrail.
Gotcha.
I think we can go ahead and compromise on the brush, don't you?
I think we should give them as much as we can that's
Yeah.
practical and that's respectful and, you know, understanding that they live with it every day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it. Do we have a motion?
Well, what about the rail?
what about the rail? Are we gonna go with the bridge rail, or were we gonna go with this rail?
I thought we were gonna keep the same rail.
That's,
Yeah.
okay, that's what I
that was
thought.
my impression.
But what about, is it gonna run continuous?
I
Are there
don't
gonna be
mind
breaks in
having
it?
it low. I don't mind the change.
Is that gonna change our cost on
Is,
this?
are we committing to that piece of this right now, Lori, or is that something that you also could continue to navigate?
The drop.
We need to determine it because we need to know what the railing and transitions will be like.
Gotcha.
So we're meeting them on site next Tuesday and to work out these details. So to me, if they want it lower in front of their property, that doesn't impact us. Or
Right.
if they want it to be the same height, I mean, I'm willing to live with either one.
But the rail's going to run across it from all 600 feet. There's gonna have to be a rail on top.
Yes.
And is the rail height going to be the same, i.e., that the concrete wall will be lower in front of the River Club and in front of John
Then
Rinaldi's
the
place?
railing would need to be higher.
So yes, so that if you look from one end of that 600 feet all the way down, the top rail is the same height all the way.
I'm looking at Megan.
It doesn't have to be per code.
But that's what you do, right? I mean, isn't that the right thing to do?
That's what makes most sense. If not, we have to have some sort of transition
That I can live with.
where we have to, you know,
Yeah.
because we don't want to have a blunt end that
And
someone
again-
could hit. So we'd have to like transition down to a lower rail.
But so what we're talking about, the transition or the change is simply the concrete base, and the height, the top rail would be at the same place. the
That's what I was
entire-
asking, yes.
And Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, is that what they were hoping for as well? It seemed to me that you had said that, right?
I think they were hoping for the Matt Lanigan Bridge guardrail
Oh, right.
Yeah, well, that's not gonna
and
happen.
brushed concrete.
No, this gives a much better view,
So,
and it does look a lot less
It's cleaner,
obtrusive.
it's cleaner.
Yeah.
can we have a motion?
So we're gonna have the rail run all the way across the top?
I thought that's what we decided on.
Perfect.
Isn't that what?
My motion is, you got a pencil? That we brush finish it, we have
On the interior.
on the interior, yep, leave it the same on the outside.
Per the River
We
Club.
have, the height of the concrete will not be continuous, it will go up and down as per the slope requirements.
Mhm.
But the height of the steel rail or aluminum rail will be the same, the top height will be the same from one end to the other. And the bricks will be
But if they
to
would
be
prefer
determined.
the wall to be the same height, is that all right with you?
Yes. Yes.
So I have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, and I would just add to that motion, that we were going to say that Lori can continue, to the degree practical, to negotiate matters, of taste and preference that don't materially impact either cost or timing of the project.
Correct, because we have to,
We have to have this done by
we
the
have
end
to
of
be
November.
sensitive
So,
to
but
the
to the
cost.
degree that,
because
you
we
know, there
budgeted
are,
it.
some of these questions continue, but Lori can actually work with people to get to a happier place, as long as it doesn't impact the speed or the timing of the project or
Or the money.
cost in a material way, you know, she has that latitude. Right?
Absolutely.
Good.
Okay, so I have a first and second. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
Thank you,
much.
guys.
That was a good presentation. Thank
Yes. Very
Okay.
helpful.
Consider street opening permit for Christopher and Shannon Ellis, 52 Langsford Road, for underground electrical trench. And I see,
you. We're on-
Mike, that you did not sign off on that, so there must be a reason.
We paved Langsford Road 3 years ago, and they have built the house since then. And then they approached us for underground power. So the question would be, would you let them cut a 2-foot trench across Langsford Road? And if you would, do we want to have conditions on that trench?
Didn't we just pave that road?
We
did.
paved that 3 years ago.
So isn't it like a 5-year moratorium
Yeah.
on this?
That is at your discretion. And-
We do
And-
not have an ordinance or a policy about a
On that.
moratorium.
Okay. So, you know, when you cut open a fairly recent road, it sinks after you patch it.
I agree.
Or rises. And it
I think
just-
Mike probably knows.
Yeah, I think he probably does, but this is how I'm feeling about this. I'm not really, I'd hate to see us cut the road, and then all of a sudden you have a bump there till the next time you resurface it.
Can't you just put a
So-
pole in on their side and then run it underground?
If you tell them to do that, that's what they'll have to do.
That's my motion.
Mike, why can't they bore underneath?
You've got the sidewalk on the other side,
Yeah.
so if you want to have them cut the sidewalk and put the borehole on the other side, you could do that too. But
But
I
didn't we make,
We just-
Harrington?
just
we-
we just redid that
Yes,
sidewalk.
we made him do specific things for similar purposes.
And he redid that sidewalk, so you
Yeah,
don't
oh,
see
no,
it.
that's not my point, I'm just saying, we'd already required somebody else to, go above and beyond to repair the sidewalk,
Yeah, we have
so-
to be as, we have to follow our precedent, yeah, I think, in my view. I mean, otherwise I have a really good reason.
Well, all
why I
right,
don't.
well, if he wants to pay for the entire whatever was done across the street of the sidewalk to be repaired, bore under the road, be my guest.
No, I'm just saying, the option at least should be there. He may not like to do that, but.
So if he replaces that brand-new sidewalk that Harrington just put in, we can let him do that.
And it is possible that he can bore under the road.
He'd have to dig a hole on his side and a hole on our side and go across,
And
yes.
he'd have to go under, he'd have to dig up the sidewalk to do that, he couldn't go underneath it?
I don't think there's any, you gotta dig a receiving and ascending pit.
Gotcha.
So perhaps, ETTI does that, they're pretty much the go-to people on that.
Sometimes you just can't get what you want.
Yeah.
So give him
I'm
those,
gonna recuse myself because this is actually a neighbor.
Okay.
so would you like me to just tell him, can you explore a pole on your side and then going underground from the pole? Or option 2, bore under and see if they could do that? And,
I just don't want to cut the road open.
okay.
That's my personal opinion.
it's
And
our-
I don't
it's
have a
our-
problem with the sidewalk, but we just
Right,
made
it's our
somebody do it.
It's our policy not to do it.
Correct.
And we have told someone else they
Yeah.
could, so I just don't feel good
But,
about it.
but I will say, and I said this to Mike already, it's not a road that is well-traveled. I mean, be quiet.
But do you travel it poorly, Sheila?
No.
I know you
but
live
I mean,
there, but I was-
As far as the major traffic is concerned, it's not Main Street, it's not Route 9. Do we get traffic? Yes, but cars generally, by the time they get down to there, are driving slowly anyway. So I'm just thinking that if should the road get cut up and then done over, it's not a main road where you'd be getting heavy trucks and
But that's not the issue. Physics is the issue. In the spring, or when the frost comes out of the ground, it's gonna heave and it's gonna pop that piece out. So,
So do you want,
that's
Just-
my issue. If we were gonna redo that road, if it was on the schedule for 2020, I'd say, go dig it up. Do what you wanna do, because you're not gonna hurt it, because we're gonna
Yeah,
fix it. But
it's 5
we
years.
just did it.
Can I have a motion?
I don't have a motion.
I'd say Mike made one.
That's
so
what I
you
thought.
like, well, you don't have to approve it, but you want me to go talk to them,
I
get
think
that
that'd be
back?
a good
Yes, I mean,
idea.
you
Because
perhaps,
then-
actually, what I'd like you to do, if I were to make a motion, is have Mike go and talk to him, see what's feasible, and then come back to us.
So
Yeah,
you're,
we don't need a
you're
motion.
denying
We
the
need a motion for
so
that.
your motion to deny the application at this point?
Motion to
Or
deny.
to table it, or what?
Oh,
Table motion.
Table.
Table,
Table
yes,
motion.
fair enough.
Okay, thank you.
I had a
Thank you.
first.
No,
one, a
thank
second
you, Mike.
Table motion?
Oh, yeah,
Table.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, I retract
Second,
my
all in
motion
favor?
that, yeah.
Table, okay, good. Okay. Now, one of my most favorite things.
Here we go.
Authorized contract with Casella for solid waste collection. I'm gonna pass this one over to you, boss.
So Michael Claus is gonna give you an update, and I'll fill in where necessary.
So Sarah Miriam is our intern at Town Hall, and she has done yeoman's work with with me and the recycling committee. So most of what you have here is being well organized is because of Sarah. So we have a new solid waste committee, and we've been looking at recycling. We've gone over with you guys the issues.
So to begin with, our solid waste contract expires at the end of this month,
Correct.
and we need to move forward with a contract.
We have
So we have two options. One is to do solid waste only, and the second to look at recycling and where that fits.
So I think Lori can go over you. We got some good pricing on recycling, on solid waste. The news is not so good on recycling. We got, looking at what Casella wants to charge us for curbside pickup every other week. Instead, they used to be a quarter of the price of our solid waste pickup, but they've gone a half. They're basically saying they're sending a truck around half as much as we're solid waste collection, so we're gonna charge you half of the cost of collection. So our collection price has more than doubled in their proposal for recycling. And then in addition to that, we would have to start paying to have our material actually recycled wherever it got sent. The only two places that we've looked at is EcoMaine or Casella's facility up in Lewiston. At EcoMaine, there is a base $65 a ton charge, plus a contamination fee, and a possible fee if recycling goes negative and they have to pay to get it recycled. So we're looking at probably in the range of $130 a ton once it gets delivered to have it recycled. So costs have gone up significantly, and we did not budget for it. But the solid waste committee would still like you to consider, if you can find the money, to continue curbside recycling.
I don't see how we can do that, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so it would be $60,000 probably to continue recycling this year that we have not budgeted.
So there's some other alternatives out there, right?
Oh, can we talk about cardboard? You didn't talk about cardboard.
And then
Okay.
cardboard, we have 2 cardboard containers. Casella, Oceanside was transporting those for no cost, but because the market for cardboard is currently zero, there's no money coming in to cover that cost. So they want to charge about $240 per haul to take out those containers. The one in Dock Square leaves 3 times a week. The one at Bradbury's in the summertime might leave once a week. In the wintertime, it doesn't fill up as fast. But it adds up to about around 150 hauls a year is what we'd have to end up paying for cardboard at $240 a ton.
So what does that equal out to?
We came up
Roughly.
with, yes, cardboard, 30,000
30,000?
Well, we thought for the rest of this year.
for the rest of this year.
Okay.
So that's 90,000.
And that's not budgeted either, right?
That is not budgeted. Well, we budgeted, we did budget $50,000 for recycling materials this year.
So there is some money there.
That was for recycling collection. That was we took our old collection costs and kept it, basically. So we could continue to do that. The other options are, Kennebunk has a recycling center at Sea Road. It is open to the public, and you can bring zero sort or cardboard there, but you have to pay when you get there. It is paid by the yard, so it's $50 a yard for zero sort recycling and $55 a yard for cardboard. A yard is about a pickup truck bed flat. They told me they charge about $2 for a typical recycling bin that we would have curbside, and say $5 for a 32-gallon trash can.
So the general public can still recycle.
Yes.
I did have conversations with both Arundel and Kennebunk about, Arundel opening up their transfer station so that our residents could use that. The cost to do that is they only are open 2 days a week and would have to open another day for us. Were fairly exorbitant. I mean, it would compete with curbside recycling at that point. And residents would have to pay when they get there. Kennebunk, I've had conversations with them. They have said that they would be willing on a trial basis to let us come to their transfer station and see if there's any additional demand that it creates, that we should look at a cost share after a trial period. So the issue is what we have available for funding. We have the idea of curbside, recycling with a contract. We think EcoMaine would probably be the most cost-effective contract at this point. And then we have the issue of the cardboard containers. So we can't do all of that in the funds that we have available in the current budget. The Selectmen and Budget Board did review that. The Solid Waste Committee, did meet on Monday of this week. It seems like it's been 2 weeks this week, but it's only been one. And, their first priority was to continue curbside recycling, and they wanted to make sure that was conveyed to you.
Well, I don't know how we can.
So, but we have enough money in our budget to go ahead and do the cardboard pickup. Is that correct?
We could probably continue the cardboard pickup
Yeah.
for the rest of the fiscal year, if that was the only thing we did, because Kennebunk is not looking to charge us additional funds for now.
Okay.
Is there anybody that wants to talk about this? Come right up, John.
I dressed for the occasion.
That's fine, so did I. Got my blue jeans on.
And I understand that $90,000 is a lot of money, it's not in the budget. But I can appreciate the difficulty in balancing decisions with that kind of money at stake. But what I particularly like to do is just to make some points that were new to me when I started looking into this recycling problem. And I do this I would love to have you vote the money, but I appreciate the difficulty in that. But we're going to face this next year. And I think it would be a real mistake if we chose just not to recycle at all. And when I was looking at it, well, what were the reasons why we might not want to recycle? Well, it's all being thrown in a landfill. That's really not true. Well, I'm sorry, that might be one of the reasons. Certainly it's a reason that worried me. I actually stopped recycling, I'll admit it. I took my cardboard to Bradbury's, but heck, I just put it in the trash. What's the sense of recycling if it's being thrown in a landfill? We went up to EcoMaine, we watched what they were doing. It's not going into a landfill. It is being separated. The metals, the ferrous, the aluminum are being sold. The paper is being baled, and the paper is the issue. The paper is 60% of the volume. Right now, there isn't a good market for it. Right now, the best that's going to happen to it is it's going to go overseas. It'll probably end up in a landfill or worse. But the good news is that paper has a constituency that is building furnaces and recycling plants. There's one going up north. In knowing that this recycling paper is coming, there is the economy, the industry is moving to make use of it. And my concern is if we stop recycling, or if we tell people, you got to drive it yourself and pay for it at Kennebunk.
Well, you're gonna pay for it in taxes.
Indeed you are. Indeed you are. But people are going to stop recycling. If we stop the curbside pickup, if we say, maybe we have to say we've got to delay it. It wasn't in this budget. If that's got to be the decision,
That's
we've
where
got to make it real clear that the curbside, and I would hope you would look at this, and I'll be here to talk to you again when it comes to next year, that we look to budget the money to do the curbside. Because in essence, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we're not separating our paper and providing that, then industry isn't going to build the furnaces and everything else they need to make use of that paper. So we're just kind of falling down and playing dead
Well,
instead of supporting it.
It could within a year's time, things could really change.
I think they
For the
will
better.
change. I think they
So-
will change.
I would like to just to go ahead and do our regular curbside pickup with the trash and let the people that want to go ahead and recycle, take it to Kennebunk, but I am in favor of still doing the cardboard, picking up the cardboard at the two stations.
And
But
then
But
in
that's
the
mostly
meantime-
business, but I would agree with that. I would agree we ought to continue doing that at least.
And then in the meantime, with your committee, look into what's going on, what's getting better, is it worth it? Is it gonna cost us another $150,000, but will it be worth it? Like you said, when they came and spoke with us, the gentleman told us, 80-90% of what you're supposed to be recycling goes into the trash anyway. So when that
Yeah.
changes, maybe we can revisit this.
I believe you had bad information on that. 80 to 90% does not go into the landfill.
Well, according to the gentlemen who were here, a couple of months ago?
Well, I think,
Yeah.
Sheila, part of that too was contamination that he was
Exactly,
talking about.
right.
But he was talking about a spectrum of, say, plastics, like 1 through, was it 7 or 8?
Right?
And, 1 and 2 and perhaps 3 were recyclable, but the other numbers were not recyclable, and they made up a large, or a percentage of what was going into recycling. I think really what we need, if we're going to continue at some sort of recycling, is better education, because after that meeting and I went home to put my trash out and it happened to be recycled, and I looked through it and I'm like, I think this is just another, I just filled this up, I might as well throw it in the trash, because what I thought was
Well, that's what you
recyclable
said.
wasn't.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about.
And
I think we definitely need to hear again about what's being done with that recycling. 'Cause I think the
Well,
information is
this was my
skewed.
fault, not,
No,
not
I hear it.
society,
I
I
hear it.
mean, what could or couldn't be recycled, it was just that I thought, it's cardboard, it's a pizza box, you throw it in there, but that's not, and I think Eco Maine, because I get up at dark 30 in the morning and watch the news and drink coffee before I go out on my lobster boat for about a half an hour or so, and I see the same commercials over and over again, and Eco Maine is putting a big push out there to try and educate people. The problem is most people are asleep, but they are trying to educate people that they have apps, et cetera, of what goes in the.
And they will work with us. They have a
Yes.
full 40-hour-a-week person. They're hiring a second to do the education push, so it's coming. You got a tough decision today, but please keep it open that with new information that we can look at doing the curbside.
Well, the
in
contract
21.
has to be
Tonight.
done tonight.
Right.
So,
Right.
I
Think
think we,
2100.
I think what we do is we pass the pickup. And then as far as the pricing for recycling, we just can't do it this year. We just can't do it now.
What about the cardboard?
Cardboard, we can use this, that 50,000, yeah.
But I thought the 50,000 was more so that the recycling committee would have some money and be able to work forward through this.
Hi, I'm Paul Hogan. I was also on the committee. Thanks, John. My concern is about what this is saying about the values of this town. Do we want to also be known, we've had some bad press lately for water quality and beaches that are a problem. Do we now want to be known as the only town in the state that is abandoning recycling? When I also serve on the Growth Planning Committee, and two of the questions we asked were, number 7, what's the most important issue to you? 69.9% said natural resources and environment. The next most important thing was 29%. We asked another question, which of the following issues are priorities for the town for the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years? 54% said preservation of natural resources and the environment. The next highest was 12% affordable housing. So I think the people in town have a value. And I would bet if we had them today here, no one knows this is on the agenda, so nobody's here, of course. But I think,
Oh, if I could, the time for people to be here when this was on the agenda would have been when we were approving the budget and we had all the presentations
understand.
where people were talking to us about it.
I understand, but we also found $100,000 to hire consultants to look at the village parcel. That wasn't in the budget that I voted for last year. We bonded the,
I think it was.
no, we bonded,
Contingency.
yeah, it came out of the same fund we're asking for. So it's a value system. If this isn't important to the town, we can't find the money. If it's important to the town, it's only $60,000. It's like $28 a household. We have 1,200 stops. So, I think it just says a lot about the town. And if this is what you want to be known for,
Oh, here's the problem I've got with that, okay? It's not about value.
we find the money when we need, when it's important.
No, we had data that said this money was being
I know, and
thrown into the wind.
I understand that, and that's what
we have
our.
no data apart from anecdotal
I understand. And
that
when-
suggests otherwise.
When the committee sat down, that's what we were told, and we said, really? And why are, 100 communities on the letterhead here for Eco Maine still paying and doing this? So we went up and we learned. And we learned that, from what I understood, first of all, Eco Maine never shipped abroad. They were able to source all of their material on the east coast of the United States and into Canada. The problem, they only had a problem when the mills closed down in Maine. Then they had a problem with paper. 60% of their materials went to Canada and went to the mills up north. And when they stopped taking recycled paper, they ran into a huge problem. Then they shipped abroad. And then when the Chinese market crashed, everything came tumbling down. So we're certainly at the worst possible moment. And, we understand that. They are hopeful. The Chinese have bought, Dragon 9 has bought the mill in Rumford. They have whipped that place into shape. I have friends who work there. They can't believe what they're doing. And they're hoping to take recycled paper and reset their process so they can do that. It's not a guarantee.
Well, we're gonna go ahead, and I'm personally don't wanna vote for the pickup for recyclables. I wanna wait, I wanna see what this year does. We need to find the money if we're gonna do it next year. If the people wanna vote it in, I would go along with that, but that's next year.
See,
The
I mean, we
budget's
were very
already
lucky
been
not
done.
to have to pay,
Right, we were.
Right.
we had a long-term contract and the company got bought and we were very lucky.
But, I mean, we have an open mind, all of us have an open mind.
we agonized over this.
Right.
Paul, I don't know. If
We
you
agonized
weren't
too.
here
The
or-
committee's been agonizing.
But when we were actually at the point where we had the experts standing in front of us and we were actually making the decision as to how to fund this, we were agonizing. And we actually said the very same words you're saying about, is that who we really want to be? And the data we were given and all of the information we were given to a silent audience, okay, with no one raising the issue at the time, and now that we're getting cold feet, okay, throw money at it. And principally, I would much rather recycle. And if we can get data and if over time, I mean, I think it's absolutely the right thing for Kennebunkport to do forever. But I'm really concerned with painting the town and us in a negative light in the way that you did, suggesting is that who you want to be or who we want to be as a town, when we agonized over it and had that very conversation and then made the decision.
And now we know the correct information
But is it
and
really-
we're still making the same decision.
But is it
That's all.
correct or is it
Yeah,
anecdotal?
but don't forget, you went to a place also.
That is
that-
selling the
that
product.
is
Oh, of
selling
course,
their
I
product.
understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that.
I mean, it's like going
And
to Pepsi and finding out why it's better than Coke. I
Right.
mean, I know it's a little bit better than that. Please. forgive
99% of, 1% of their materials is waste, and of course it goes to the, across to the next building. The glass doesn't have any market right now, and we should all use cans and not buy glass. I learned that, and that's part of the education. And we've never done education because we didn't have to. It didn't matter to us. It wasn't a priority either. Now we have to. If I can buy my beer in a can instead of a bottle, I'll buy it in a can.
Well, I think that we need to look at the education as we go forward this year and look at it really hard at our next budget and see what we can do with it. But I think that I'd like to
Yeah,
have
I have a hard time
Right.
adding on
Well,
$150,000.
and you know, here's the thing, if there's gonna be a reach for contingency at some point, I don't think that window closes with this vote today. And if there's better data and more data, I think that would be something that the board would probably entertain and consider.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a done problem. I
Well,
think
except
this is
that once you disrupt patterns of behavior, it takes years to get people, everybody knows what to do, except for the
But
tourists
they don't,
who,
we just talked about how, you know, they
Right.
don't know
We're
what to
not
do
doing
because
it
we're not doing it
correctly.
right.
It's the contamination effect,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, how many times have you seen a clink box? And everybody knows what, or should know what clink is. You only throw your cans and your bottles in there.
right.
That never happens. Because we have, a couple at the hotel.
Sure. Well,
Inevitably,
we live in
there's-
a community where we have visitors every week, and they change every week and every weekend, and you can't educate them very easily. There's no doubt about it.
No, because
But we've
when
been
they
recycling
recycle.
for
But even those of us who live
years and
here
years.
aren't doing it right because no one ever told us. I learned a lot by taking the tour.
Yeah.
But we have an open mind, and we're gonna keep looking.
Paul, principally, I don't think anyone here disagrees with you at all.
Can I have a motion?
I will make a motion that we accept the proposal for pickup, starting year one, 9/1/2019, for $197,500. And then continue with the cardboard dumpsters, because we have the money.
And then continue to review.
And then continue to review.
And encourage the solid waste committee to come back with a solid forward motion on how recycling should be continued in the future, and I think that the board is committed to that, you
Yeah.
know?
I think we're gonna need
First.
an education component
A
to
second?
that, but
Yeah.
that's,
So
It's coming
is
down
the
the line.
board voting to accept the 5-year contract?
Yes.
yes.
So I have a motion and a second?
Second,
No, I had a second.
All right.
I'm all in favor? Okay. Thank you guys for your time. I know you put a lot of time in this and everything else, and I think that we'll be able to move forward on this a little bit and see if we can do something a little better, especially with the education part of it. Because that's
Yeah,
one of the most
that's-
important parts.
Yeah.
It really is. Okay.
18.
18, award the comprehensive plan RFP. Hi, Werner.
Good evening. Tonight, I'd like to bring forward to you a request to reward or authorize us to enter into a contract with TZM Planning and EF Planning and Design for our expert professional services for a rewrite of our comprehensive plan. We put the proposal out in June. We received 5 proposals back from all well-qualified firms. I worked with a committee that consisted of Dan Saunders, who was the chair, Paul Hogan, Pat Briggs, Yanina Nicholas, and myself were part of the group. We reviewed the 5 proposals and chose 3 that we interviewed. And out of the 3 that we interviewed, the committee was unanimous in our decision to recommend TZM and EF Planning to the Selectmen. We had a couple of modifications that I went back to the group with and that I asked them to address. It principally was in any areas of what the final product of the comp plan was going to look like, and TZM came back with a positive response in terms of bringing someone with design experience in terms of putting together I think a much more visually pleasing product than what a typical comp plan of just verbiage and data would look like. And with that, with those modifications, we remained in the same budget, category of below 90,000.
And will this take place over 1 year?
That's
Or
the
is
that's
this
the
for the-
anticipation. Yeah, it's a year to year and a half. Depending on where we land in terms of bringing it to the voters. We'd like to get started probably mid-September on the rewrite.
So I guess my point is, if this doesn't, because I know the growth planning had a hard time last time. Remember, it was presented, it was voted down, we had to go back, and
Yep.
that, would the contract be done in a year? And if we continued it, would it be more? Or would they do everything until, would it be 89,000 until it's complete?
Yeah, so 89,000, assumes a certain time frame. It also assumes, it assumes the putting together a product. But it also, within the description, assumes, quite a bit of public participation. I'd like to say that, when I look back at what occurred in 2000 and, gosh,
I know,
3 and 5.
It's been a while ago.
yeah.
That process had some shortfalls, and ultimately, which led us to the process that we did, where it took us 6 years to
Right.
get through the comprehensive plan. We don't want to go through that lengthy of a process again, but I'd like to think that, we have, the makeup of the committee is different than what it was in, 03 and 05, and I think that this particular group will work well with the committee, and we've made it clear that that we want the public to be heard when it comes to critical elements. I know there's a couple of critical elements in the old plan that it was pretty clear that the public wasn't listened to, and that's what led to those versions
Right,
not being
right.
not being approved.
What's the plan?
I move we appropriate 89,980. Julie, you moved your paper, I was reading yours. No, it's gone now. For some reason, this didn't end up in my agenda.
18, 19.
$89,988.
That's what I was saying, yes.
Yep. You the first,
Second.
second, any other discussion? That's it? All in favor? Thank you,
Great.
Werner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, going back to the last one about the Casella contract and recycling, you didn't put it in part of your motion, but are you interested in working with Kennebunk on a trial basis
I
Oh,
am,
yeah.
for
Yes.
allowing citizens to recycle?
absolutely.
absolutely.
So their selectmen meet next Tuesday, so I would just need to notify them if that is a desire on our part.
That's a
Yeah.
desire for me.
Yeah.
How about you guys?
And it
Absolutely.
gives the people who still want to recycle a place to go, so that they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so consider requests for the FY 2019 carry forwards. Did you want to tackle that, Lori?
Yeah, Jen has completed the fiscal year 19 accounts payable. We did have some requests for carry forwards into FY 20, and those are outlined here on your sheet. And the village parcel total is in here, as well as highway street markings and salts, fire uniforms and PPE. We have some radio upgrades and contracts on communications. Our digital recorder has failed and we need to replace that. We still have an opening in our sergeant position in police, and we'll need to do that promotion process this year, which will cause some additional costs. And then in planning, they have a request for some computers and training, as well as a new software module through Trio Software, which is our financial software for code enforcement.
Okay.
I make a motion, we move it as written.
Second.
Any more discussion? First and seconded, and all in favor? Thank you.
At least we don't have to use it all.
Okay, other business. Nominate the vice president and the executive committee members to the MMA. And I can tell you who they are. Proposed, for vice president, proposed by MMA nominating committee, James Gardner Jr., town manager, town of Eastern. You can only vote for one, and there's only one there. Executive committee members, it's a 3-year term. The vice president is a 1-year term, but executive committee is a 3-year term. It's proposed by the MMA nominating committee, John Beekman, chair select board of the town of Fayette, David Sire, town manager of the town of Mars Hill, and Ivan McPike, Mayor of the town of Hampton.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Did we get that right, Lori?
What's that?
I just asked Lori if we get it right.
I think we did, yeah. So, okay, other business. Stuart, do you have any other business?
I do, actually, yes. One piece of, it was something that came up, and we had talked about it back in May. And I had shared with the board that I had accepted a position and a role in a project that was going to take me outside of Kennebunkport for some time. And after having been down there for the last couple of months doing that, it's clear to me that that's going to be something that's going to be taking, that I'm going to be doing for a while. And so with that said, I will be resigning my seat on the Board of Selectmen. And it's sad, I have to tell you how sad it makes me to do that.
Makes us sad too.
Yeah.
It's one of the most rewarding things in my life, certainly in my time here in the community, has been being a member of this team, and to contemplate a time for me personally without that is very hard to envisage. So I don't know exactly the date that I will be stepping down. I'll coordinate with Lori as to look ahead at and see if there are days or times where I can continue. But I would imagine I will not be able to fulfill this role beyond certainly the next 30 to 60 days. And I would say that we need to take action to elect a replacement ahead of my term was up next June. And I think you don't want to wait that long, and I can't.
I don't think your term's up next June.
I thought it was.
No, my term's up
Year and a
next
half.
June.
Is it a year and a half?
Yeah,
Is it?
because we run this concurrent, you and I.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Well,
I
you know
thought-
something.
I thought I only had one, I thought it was a.
No, good another year.
Gotcha, all right, oh well.
But
In any event, that's kind of academic sadly. Certainly I think that you'll want to look at November probably. But again, I'll coordinate that with you, Lori, as to what you think the best, and my resignation effective date will be whenever you think it is appropriate, given the amount of time I can be in Kennebunkport.
Stuart, you've been one of the best persons I think I've ever worked with.
Thank you.
And we have something for you, don't we? Don't we? I think we do. I think we have something for you.
For me?
Yeah, yeah. Yep. I'd go get it, but I don't know where it is.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, we've worked together for so many years.
Yeah, it's been.
And it's gone by quick. I probably really wouldn't have known you if I hadn't been on this board, but I consider you one of my friends. You've
Right,
done something,
likewise.
you've done so good, you've done so much for this town, it's unbelievable.
Good job.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a card. So, you and I talked the other day,
There's no money in it.
you and I
Yeah,
talked.
there's still money.
Yeah, there's no money. You and I talked the other day, right? And you said, the place I'm living at is all done except there's nothing on the wall.
That's true.
So, maybe
Oh, my gosh.
this might help you a little bit.
That is absolutely, oh,
And
my
the
gosh.
dates are on it.
That's
You know,
nice choice.
Board of Selectmen 2004 to 2007, and then Board of Selectmen from 2009 to 2019.
Wow.
So,
This is,
really nice. Huh?
I can't
Pictures.
even begin to tell you
Who's got a
how,
phone?
You can thank
Fantastic.
Lori for
Nice.
that because she put a thinking cap on and
Oh.
this is what she thought it would be great.
oh, my God.
Her and Arlene.
Bowl's really nice.
It's gonna be one of those rare moments where words are gonna be very hard for me to come up with at this point.
And
A
you're gonna
smile
be
on my face
sadly,
and tears in my eyes here. This is-
you're gonna be
Well,
sadly missed,
you are-
but you're gonna show up occasionally, correct?
I want to show up as often as I can. I intend to be in town monthly, certainly. I just know that I would do this position and this role a disservice to continue in it, not being able to, to be what, at the level I've been in the past. And even though I always, Kennebunkport is always going to be home. There's just never a time. This role is, I envision being for several years probably. But who knows? You might see me back sooner than that. But right now I'm
Well,
living
you'll
it.
have to run again.
That's
Yeah,
all he
exactly.
would be.
Well, exactly. If everyone else would have me. But no, thank you so very much. This is amazing. You were paying attention to a conversation we had, that's why. 'Cause I didn't, really, my walls are barren down there.
I didn't do this.
No, but
Arlene
this
and
is-
Lori did this.
this is
Okay,
fantastic.
I just
Yeah.
suggested that. It was
We
walls
couldn't
of
make a
bare.
decision. She showed us all the pictures and we're going, oh, I don't know.
You like them
We don't
all.
know. We
You
like
could
them
not
all.
have landed in a better place. I'm just so moved and
Perfect.
appreciative. This is, I cannot wait
And
to
and
hang
you can
these.
name every,
Oh, gosh, yeah.
place, yeah.
I mean, very intimately.
Yeah,
It's so,
very
so
nice.
cool.
very nice,
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Sheila, do you have anything?
I have nothing,
Ed?
just that I want the wall done by Prelude. Who's here?
Ed?
No, other than just to say the same that you did, that it's been a pleasure, Stu. Really, on a personal note, you really helped me grow myself as a human being. You know, when you're a lobsterman and you're on a boat by yourself or with your stern man for most of your life, you know, your interpersonal skills aren't very good. So you'll be sorely missed, because I always look to you for inspiration when I want to say things that I shouldn't. So you will definitely be missed around here.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you very much.
Is that it? Lori, you must have something.
I think just that Stuart certainly will be missed. When I went through the interview process, Stuart was busy in Connecticut, and people said all these things about Stuart. It was like, you know, when you're a little girl and people talk about Barbie. And people would talk about Stuart. Well, Stuart this, and wait till you meet Stuart and Stuart and Stuart and Stuart. And I thought, who is this Stuart? And so...
And you came to know they were exaggerating, right?
No, I think everyone's comments didn't even begin to do you justice. Your commitment to this community is something to uphold, and now you have created a new slogan that Ed and I often use now. What would Stuart do? WWSD? So I thank you for, on behalf of all the residents of Kennebunkport, for everything you've done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, we may be getting phone calls.
That's right, you may be getting a call occasionally.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
So Lori, do you have anything else?
No.
So,
I move
The treasurer's
to,
room?
move the treasurer's room.
I've heard a first.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Go ahead.
One more time, Stu.
Yep.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God, this is so, thank you.
You deserve what you got.